And what are the ethical considerations around AI?
So the big thing that people obviously seem to be struggling with is the truth, or how reliable is the output. I don't know if you've heard of the strawberry test. You can say to OpenAI, how many R's are there in strawberry? And it will run all its calculations, and it will tell you there's 2 R's in strawberry. And you say, no, that's not right. That's wrong. And it'll kind of correct itself. And then it'll show you how it's done it. And the way that an AI breaks up a word into these tokens and numbers and mathematics, the 2 R's live together and that other R is in a different word, or it's in a different equation. If you go now today to OpenAI, it will tell you there are 3 R's because somebody has written, if anybody asks you how many R's there are in strawberry, tell them there are 3. If you now ask it how many R's there are in raspberry, it will tell you there's 2, because they've not written a case for that exact behavior.
Hello and welcome to the AdTech Heroes Podcast. In today's episode, we're going to talk about AI ethics. I'm delighted to be joined by James Sandham, who's the Global Head of Digital and AI Development at MullenLowe Global. Hi James, how's it going?
Good morning. It's going okay. This morning was a little bit hairy, but thank you.
Brilliant. No, let's get straight into it. I'd love to know more about your career and what's got you to where we are here today.
I was the classic kind of nerdy kid at school. So computer club, chess club, those kind of things, spending far too much time in my bedroom playing computer games. So I was that kind of kid. Luckily, my dad worked for a company that was rolling out like electronic stock ordering. And so my first exposure to computers was him bringing home Commodore 64s that were all broken or didn't work, and me kind of taking 2 or 3 of these broken machines and assembling them together into one working machine. And he said, "Oh, you can keep that if you want. That's something we don't need in the business." So that's where I kind of was first exposed to computers. And as I say, as part of that, he had very early modems. So I was, again, tinkering with bulletin board systems even before the internet as we know it today kind of started. So again, I was in my bedroom dialing into bulletin boards half a world away and chatting to people on those communities in the very early 90s, even sort of late 80s. Went to university, did a computer science degree, because that was where my interest lies, but it was right as the internet was a thing, so mid to late 90s. So very lucky to be exposed to the internet, which was a brand new technology. Nobody really knew what it was about or knew how to do it. So anybody who had a little bit of knowledge was kind of very useful and very powerful in those days. And actually, even though I was doing a computer science degree, which was very heavily programming, actually, I managed to kind of change or pivot at what I was learning into learning about the internet. And actually, as part of that degree, I did a year out in industry and worked with a huge UK company on one of the very first intranets. So again, late 90s, when internet and intranet weren't really common day terms, helped build one of the very first intranets as a kind of knowledge sharing, knowledge base information for this big corporation. And really just kind of coasted through on that for a couple of years. The internet was new. The internet was shiny. The internet was what everybody wanted. Everybody wanted an internet website. They didn't even know why or what they were for, and kind of built a career out of that. And then turned that into kind of project manager, head of project management, head of development, head of digital, and then into this role now at MullenLowe, which has been great. MullenLowe's been a very progressive organization to employ. I'm effectively, I have split my time between client and internal work. So a lot of the people in my sector work on client work and are subject to the whims and the needs of clients, whereas MullenLowe has taken a reasonably progressive approach where I build stuff for internal teams as well. And that's where I've been able to explore a lot of now AI, in that we can, rather than just the commercial selling aspect of AI to some shiny advertiser's campaign, we can use AI internally and build tools very specifically for MullenLowe and also IPG to make use of AI.
Wow. Oh, that sounds like an amazing journey. I don't think there's any other guest that we've had who's, a lot of guests have just fallen into the industry or by accident. Their background, their education's been, something completely different. But it seems like with you, from a very young age, there was that genuine interest, right? Of, whether it's computers, hardware, software, seeing things from scratch, building things. Would you say that's safe to say, like, that curiosity has always been there from an early age? And would you say you've still got that element now as well?
Yes, very much so. And you're right, it comes from a different viewpoint as well. I think in advertising and in creative sector, a lot of people are creative people who've used technology to their advantage or have learned to use technology to do their job. I was very much the other way. I was, like I say, I was the nerdy kid, the techie kid at school, was doing this from a computer point of view or from a programming point of view, and have happened to have come across the sector like the advertising sector. I didn't want to go and work in a huge corporation in the dark, shadowy back room programming at a green screen terminal. That sounded terrible, and I wasn't particularly good at that. I wasn't a programmer's programmer. So to find the internet and to find something that is new and you can just learn, you can learn as the industry's growing, has been really great. To just ride that crest of the wave as it's been developing itself, and to always try and be at the crest of that wave, just picking up the new technology. Being interested in it helps to keep you on that edge.
Definitely, like I said, massively interesting journey. We've had episodes in the past on our podcast that have talked about AI, but we've never had an episode just purely on AI, and so that's why I'm super excited about this kind of next 30 minutes or so. So I suppose, getting straight into it, how are we currently using AI in our industry?
So when ChatGPT, and I guess it's now I guess 2 years or whatever it was, November 22 or something.
It's been 2 years already. It feels literally like it was, I think,
exactly.
3-4 months ago.
And the repercussions are still on a daily basis, really. But yeah, I think it was November 22, ChatGPT announces itself. And we'd had kind of machine learning and deep learning and stuff, and things that people might have thought were AI before then. But this launch of generative AI, and that's what I'm very much speaking about now, is this generative AI aspect. That seemed to just turn up one day, and not a lot of people had heard of it. I'd seen little bits and played with little bits of tools and thought, that's an interesting gimmick. I don't know if that'll ever find a place or ever find something that'll be particularly useful. But it definitely turned up one day, and almost overnight, people either panicked or cheered or said, "Oh my God, what are we going to do? How are we going to use this technology to do something really good or really useful?" And then also some people said, "Oh, how are we going to use this technology to lay off loads of staff or get rid of loads of people? Or wow, this completely does away with an entire team that we had in the organization. Brilliant! I can buy some of this technology to make the bottom line look better." But yeah, so there was a lot of that, and then it kind of spiked this Gartner curve of interest. It really spiked what was going on, and there are lots of ways that people are trying to use it, even within the sector and even within my corporation and the network that my company's in. We are continuously looking for places where AI can either help or can add to what we do. And it's across the whole project lifecycle. So from creating speculative work or pre-pitch work, people coming up with ideas, generating ideas, coming up with suggestions for things, honing ideas down. It kind of starts there, and then even beyond winning a piece of work, we're looking into how it can be used for plans and planning. How it might be used for budgeting. So you can say, here's my entire history of every project that we've ever done. Can you write me a new project plan for this project, or can you write me a new budget for this very similar project to something we've done before? Can you do that automatically? And then out into production, generating assets or generating content or kind of honing content, personalizing content. And then out beyond just it's in the marketplace, analyze the statistics of a project, change the campaign, change the market you're going to. So it's run the whole length of the project that people are looking at. I think the biggest thing that companies are stuck with is that there's a paralysis of choice. There's even again from November 22 to now, there's hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of AI applications, AI suppliers, multiple versions of things. Companies are a little bit paralyzed by what they can do or where they can go. They buy one technology. In 3 months' time, that's been superseded by another provider, or the technology they bought has changed. They've changed the model. They've changed how it works. So now everything they built on that model doesn't work. So they've got to rebuild that model.
And in advertising, do you feel there's certain areas, whether it's media agencies, media owners, ad tech, that some are using it more than others, or or advertisers using it more than some of the other stakeholders within the industry?
Yeah, there's definitely a difference in how clients have approached it. There are some clients, and it's not necessarily about size or the kind of their appetite for adventure. Some clients have really embraced it, and some clients are scared of it. The main thing where legal departments are very nervous about it. So we often have a meeting with a client. We've got this idea for either producing something or for monitoring something or for running some analysis on some data. The client says, yeah, I'm happy with that, or I want to explore that opportunity. And then we say, oh, we just need legal sign off, please. Can you send us an email back saying, yeah, you're totally fine with this, and we just need legal sign off. And then it disappears into their legal department, and legal kind of either slow it down or say, yeah, we're not going to do that. Or if we do this, then you bear the liability of it. And we say, well, we're not going to bear the liability for any issues. You have to accept the liability. And then you end up in this conversation about who's responsible for the outcomes. And that's where a lot of things stop or kind of end up stuck in the process of getting sign off.
Well, that makes sense. And what are the ethical considerations around AI?
So the big thing that people obviously seem to be struggling with is kind of hallucinations, or the truth, or how reliable is the output. And it's got better, definitely. And there are ways in which people are learning how to engineer a system, or engineer a prompt, or engineer an application that hallucinates less and less. But it still happens. There are a couple of big stories in the last couple of weeks. I think it was the BBC and Apple. Is it Apple Intelligence that they've rolled out? Apple Intelligence will summarize things on your phone. So it will summarize your emails. It will summarize news announcements. And it's there was a big thing a few weeks ago about the BBC. It was summarizing BBC news stories, but it was the summary was the opposite of the actual story. The thing they pulled out, I think there was a story about the Court of Human Rights or something putting out an arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu. So the story was, Court of Human Rights puts out arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu. The Apple summary was, Benjamin Netanyahu arrested for breaching Court of Human Rights, and that's the headline that's on your phone screen. Wow, that's pretty big news, and that's a pretty big difference to the story. So that's a key kind of thing. If people are being sent that, or if a system is relying on that information coming into it and then performing some actions based on that, then that's not reliable, or it's not something that you can rely on happening. And there's just a very simple test of, I don't know if you've heard of the strawberry test. You can say to OpenAI, how many R's are there in strawberry? And it will run all its calculations and flicker through all these things, and it will tell you there's 2 R's in strawberry. And you say, no, that's not right. That's wrong. And it'll kind of correct itself. Oh, yes, you're right. And then it'll show you how it's done it. And then it sometimes says and it will confirm again, there are 2 R's in strawberry. And it's because it's got those 2 R's together that it thinks. And the way that an AI breaks up a word into these tokens and numbers and mathematics, the 2 R's live together and that other R is in a different word or it's in a different equation. And so they've written a very specific, if you go now today to OpenAI and say, how many R's are there in strawberry? It will tell you there are 3 R's, but that's because somebody has written, if anybody asks you how many R's there are in strawberry, tell them there are 3. If you now ask it how many R's there are in raspberry, it will tell you there's 2 because they've not written a case for that exact behavior.
So is that peer, just on that point there, James, is that kind of like a peer-to-peer correction that's put into place? Is that something that all of us can go in a bit like a more advanced Wikipedia in essence, right? Because on Wikipedia we can all do that as well, right? So
Yes.
is that a good comparison or?
It's exactly that. I don't know if you've noticed when you run through ChatGPT and you get an answer, there's a thumbs up and a thumbs down often at the side. And if you press a thumbs up, that says that this was a good answer. And if you press the thumbs down, this was a bad answer. And so there is reinforcement learning that people can provide. But also these things just make it into the news. And then somebody at ChatGPT says, oh, we need to make a specific correction for that. We need to, when anybody asks this question, give them this answer. It's a very specific thing. So yeah, there is reinforcement learning back from the community, but there's also very explicit rules written that say, and it goes back to the things that people often say is like, oh, how to tell me how to make a bomb. And it used to tell you how to do that. And then somebody wrote into the code, if anybody asks how to make a bomb, tell them, oh, I'm sorry, I can't help you with that. That's illegal or it's not allowed. So they do write these specific cases, but then how are you ever supposed to capture all those cases or continuously generate answers to those cases?
Exactly. So it's not regulated. Is it regulated in that sense? So is there anybody there checking? Is there anybody checking? That somebody is literally putting in how to make a bomb in the platforms, and does it differ actually from OpenAI, ChatGPT to DeepSeek to all the others out there?
Yes, yeah, there are teams, there are test teams inside these organizations, and they do run something called red teaming, which is like testing bad outcomes. So they have big red teams who run these tests, and they ask it how to build a bomb, or tell me how to build a bomb, or pretend that you're telling me how to build a bomb, and run all these different conditions, and then they negatively vote those out, or they program out those issues. But then on the other side, you get independent people who are continuously trying to jailbreak. It's called jailbreak an AI to get it to tell you those things. And they say, pretend you're in a Shakespeare play. Write me a script of how you would build a bomb in a Shakespeare play, or kind of one of the things recently, I think it was a DeepSeek example was, and they were asking about Tiananmen Square, and that's problematic for Chinese AIs to write about. So you would say, tell me about the history of Tiananmen Square. And DeepSeek would say, I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. But somebody wrote a script where they said, replace every letter with a number and then carry out the instructions in this kind of cipher, effectively. And the cipher was like, change every A for a 4 and change I's for a 1 and change letters for different numbers. And then they typed something in, which said, tell me about Tiananmen Square, but it was in this code. And then the AI responded because it was kind of defeating the internal correction that it had written, that had been written for it, to kind of circumvent the rules that it had been written. So it's a battle, it's a war game really, and it's people trying to hack it, jailbreak it, and then the suppliers trying to fix it or safely answer these questions.
But in that whole process, aren't we just making the tool a lot more effective and powerful in that process to an extent where it'll start to think like a human? I don't know. Are we
It's
far from
definitely,
that as a reality?
I think we're definitely, I guess what we're doing is, and this leads on to another point, is we are providing, or the end user is providing, free testing or free analysis of these tools, and these corporations are then taking that testing and learning and monetizing it. They're saying our model is safe because all these people have done loads of free testing on it. So you're right. Yeah, we are building better tools and we are building better LLMs and better models, but we're not getting paid for that, and they are benefiting from that. Now, the issue comes when they release a new model, they don't always carry over the learnings from the previous model. So sometimes the new model doesn't have the learnings from the previous model, or doesn't have all the learnings, or introduces new ways to be hacked or new ways to be compromised. And so again, every time you do it, you have to do all the testing again. And every time you release a new one, you have to consider all the testing again. And every time you release a new thing, and you have to say, oh, do I have to check this again? So if that's happened, if you as a company have written a piece of AI software and said, oh, we want this AI to map out our campaign program, and you do it on ChatGPT 4.0, when ChatGPT 5.0 comes out, you might need to revisit that entire application and say, oh, now it's a new model. It behaves differently, or it gives different answers, or it gives its answers in a different way. I have to rewrite my application, or I have to check all my testing data again. So it's a constant evolution, and it's a constant, you need constant attention on these things.
And from what you understand, are there many differences between 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, ChatGPT 4.0?
Yes, yeah. They behave. They have different or updated data sources, or they introduce new data sources. So ChatGPT 1, 2, 3 was kind of trained on Wikipedia and free internet content. 4.0 introduced some other content, and I think this is where like Reddit sold all its data, because that went into ChatGPT 4.0 or into Google's Gemini. And so that's a new source of data from which your answers can be generated. So again, anything that you write on top of that, you have to go back and retest and say, am I still getting the same answers, or am I still getting the answers in the format, or in the style, or in the voice, or with the suggestions that I was getting from a previous version? Am I still getting that in the new version? And the code and the instructions they give it are also kind of continuously modified and continuously updated. So yeah, you do, every time a new version comes out, you do have to go back and revisit things. Does what I ask it to do still get done by these new models, or can I stay where I was? You can still get ChatGPT 3.5 now, and it's probably cheaper than some of the other models. So can I stay in that universe and still get my answers the way that I need them to be written?
Interesting. So how would you say you use AI as a tool, and how do the people around you in our industry also use AI as a tool?
So it's being used quite a lot for idea and campaign generation. So we and this is at pre-client stage.
I was going to say, is that pre-campaign kind of planning phase more than anything else? Okay.
Yes, yeah. And it's things like, you say, write me 100 ideas for an Instagram post on this topic, and it will in an instant generate you 100 ideas. What tends to happen is that there's still human experts involved in that process. So it's not been entirely given over to the AI. It's still a human still asks it that question. A human still writes that prompt, because writing the prompt is now a skill. That's a saleable skill. If you can write a good prompt, or the better your prompts that you write, the better the outputs. So asking it, write me 100 Instagram posts on where to eat in London. That's a terrible prompt because it's too wide open. It'll write you entirely random things. And 99 of those ideas might be terrible, or they might be very generic, or they might be only from one particular point of view. So what tends to happen is a human and possibly the client and possibly the client you're pitching to or that you're working with, you go through those 100 ideas and you say, these are bad. But this one is an interesting idea that we've perhaps not considered or perhaps just hits our sweet spot. And that's the idea that we can then spin off to a human or to a team and to say, right, okay, based on this idea, where do we go? Or how do we research this? Or what can we do more for that? The issue comes when it turns to client work is how do you charge for that? It used to be when you said, we will generate you 100 ideas for Instagram posts, you could charge a couple of days' time to do that. If an AI can do that in seconds, how do you charge for that time? It's very difficult. The client says, I could just type that into ChatGPT myself. Why am I paying you?
And are they doing that? Are there some clients doing that now? So saying, well, this looks like a ChatGPT type answer. I could have just done this myself. Is that actually happening?
It does come up. Yeah, it does come up. And again, you get that thing where they go away for the weekend and they come back and say, oh, I did this at home on my own computer. And they do it with Midjourney and they do it with all these tools, DALL-E. They're like, oh, I've generated an advert picture. I just want you to put the logo on it now.
Yeah, so I think that's just a follow-up question on that is if I type the same question on my side versus you in your side or someone else completely different part of the world, would all the answers be the same?
They'd be entirely different. And you'd never
even if it's the exact word for word question.
Absolutely, yeah. And you'd never be able to generate the same ones again. Even yourself, if you asked it, write me 100 campaign ideas for Instagram, and you ran it once and it would write you 100 ideas, and you ran it again, it would write you 100 different ideas, and you ran it again, it would write you 100 different ideas. Now, there might be some ideas that kind of vaguely match or kind of connect in there, but it's generating these things again and again and again, entirely from scratch. And that has become a problem where people have said, I was playing with this the other night and it generated me a brilliant idea and I didn't save it. And now I can't get that idea again. A lot of the providers have like a history of your conversations, which, wow, that saved a few people a few times. So I need to go and find this answer. But oftentimes people aren't saving those, or they can't. They were using a tool that now they can't remember what the tool is, or they put some data in, they can't remember what the data is. And they're like, it was a really great idea, and now I can't find it. I can't get that idea again, and you'll never get it again. It will just generate new ideas on top of new ideas all the time. And so, yeah, like you say, a client will go home over the weekend. They'll be like, oh, I made this myself. Why am I paying you to do it? And B, why can we get more ideas like this idea? And you're a bit stuck. You're like, oh, well, not really, because whatever was happening at the moment you ran that query, we can never replicate that over here again. And that's why writing a good prompt is very useful. The bigger or more specific your prompt, the less variation there is in the answers you get. So again, 100 ideas for Instagram is terrible. It's so wide. But if you said 100 ideas about this topic directed to these people who are looking at this device or who are experiencing this thing at this very moment, now write me 100 ideas for a campaign. That's much narrower that the outputs can be. So you might get, if you run that again and again and again, you might get very similar ideas in the pool that you generate.
So that's more, like you said, the planning phase, the brief response phase, and getting help where, rather than an individual doing a bit of research, going into their Google Drive or their intranet or looking at previous examples of what they've done in other industries or competitor brands. But what other applications do you think, in our industry anyway, in what other ways has AI been used?
So a lot has been done, or we've looked into a lot, and have kind of done some proof of concepts around just very, very generic office applications. So things like analyzing contracts. So a contract comes in from a legal department or an SOW or something, or a piece of work, and you feed it into an AI that you own, that's not in the public, that's behind kind of closed walls of your organization. And you say, analyze this contract, pull out any problematic clauses or anything that I need to know, like what's the terms and conditions of paying? Is it a 30-day contract or a 60-day or a 90-day contract? Are there any exclusions or inclusions that I need to be aware of? Who do I send the invoice to? How do I get a PO, or who do I have to ring if there's a problem? You can pull all that out. You can kind of define that in a prompt. You can say, tell me things about this contract, but tell me who I need to contact, who's the person who signed it, what their job title was, what the terms of payment, what are liability and issue resolution terms. And you can get all those out into a one-pager that can be stored away or can be kind of easily retrievable. You don't need to look line by line through the contract when there's a problem. So there's stuff like that. Invoice payments. So again, invoices come in. They're all in a different format. They're all in different languages. The numbers are all over the place. Sometimes they have VAT included. Sometimes that's not included. Sometimes the total is a total amount. Sometimes the total is a total amount plus local taxes. How can you get that information from a sheet of A4 or from a scan or from a emailed invoice into a spreadsheet or into a document that then can be kind of processed by your financial system? So are there places that AI can step into that process? So lots of things like that, and then around resourcing and planning. So again, here's everybody's timesheets. This is what everybody's working on. Tell me how many UX people, or identify somebody in UX who's not fully occupied, and then identify a project that I can get them to work on and sort of automatically resource them to a project, rather than having kind of resource managers have to go through sort of hundreds and hundreds of Excel sheets or lots of timesheets and forward plans and things to work out, oh, this person's free on Wednesday afternoons, right, I'll put them on that task. You should be able to get an AI to do that. And the issue is, how do you get it to do that reliably and without bias or without influence from any other particular issue that the system might be dealing with? So there are kind of back office ways that agencies and we are and other networks are looking to add AI to those processes.
I think that's a great point. I think when you look at AI, we're always thinking of how can it help our jobs, our day-to-day tasks in the roles that we all have within organizations. But like you said, like scanning over a contract, invoices, all these situations where we don't typically do that, right? Like how often, say, for example, you had a pay rise or you had a new contract given to you, you don't really get a lawyer to scan through it, right? So in those situations, do you feel that AI could provide this amazing, maybe not as, maybe it is, I'd love to hear your take, whether you think it replaces also then the value of a lawyer or someone in finance or should check things through, but it enables us who probably didn't think that we could do something because of maybe not wanting to spend money on it, whereas this is going to ease free to access as well. Do you see those types of tasks being completed a lot more now as well?
Yes, and you're right. There's definitely properly used AI gives Joe Public access to level 1 analysis of things like contracts and things like working conditions and documents. I don't think I would ever go in front of a judge and say, I want to represent myself, or I want this AI to represent me. But I might get past the first stage of having to ring up a lawyer and say, I've got an issue with my contract, or there's an issue with this piece of work or this contract for a client. I might be able to get to the next level myself, or much more quickly without having to go to a lawyer. I definitely want an expert to check any actions that I were then planning to do based on that information. But yes, it does open some of those things. I remember when I joined MullenLowe, actually, I got a contract of employment, and it was kind of reasonably thick and sort of a big old document. And I actually went through by hand, and I just pulled out little notes like, oh, holidays, right. And I wrote on the side, oh, you get 26 days holiday, right. And then I went through and it was like, oh, if you're ill, you need to ring your boss. I was like, okay, ring boss went ill. And then it had lots of other little things like your office hours. And I just jotted them down on the sides. But again, if I had to refer back to that document quickly, I could see the most important things that were relevant to me at the time that I could kind of highlight. So I used to do that by hand, but now I could get an AI to do that in a second and to list those things out. I'd have to, again, rely on the AI or the prompt knowing what I want to know, because it might summarize that document from one particular viewpoint. It doesn't know that you want a summary about lots of different viewpoints or lots of different things. It just does what you tell it to do. And if you tell it poorly, or you give it a poor instruction, or you only ask it to do one thing and not another thing, it will only do that one thing. It won't think to do the other things. So your instructions need to be really clear, and your expectations of what comes back need to be really clear.
Yeah, that makes sense. And forgive my ignorance, I've not used AI that often, but can you literally put anything in there? So like attach a file, which is a document, whether it's a PowerPoint, whether it's a Word file, like how far can you go in terms of the data set that you want to be analyzed, if that makes sense?
Yeah, there are some limitations of the file types you can put in, but actually you can put PDFs in, and PDFs, you can convert most document types into a PDF. And again, I've done it both personally and professionally, which is here are some PDFs of some materials, or here are some PDFs of some adverts. So visuals, photographs of adverts into a PDF, and then uploaded that PDF into the corporately safe AI that we have, because I wouldn't upload it to the public ChatGPT because they learn off your inputs. So I upload it to the safe AI and then say, look at these adverts in this PDF, extract the text, analyze the text, tell me why some of these adverts are better than other adverts, tell me about who these adverts might be targeting, tell me about what the messaging is of these adverts, tell me why these adverts are good or bad or indifferent or useful or irrelevant, or what brands, therefore recognize the logos and recognize the messaging and recognize the packaging. So yeah, you can send all that into an AI. And again, yeah, spreadsheets or CSVs, particularly maybe not Excel files themselves, but CSVs. Here's a huge amount of data. Pull out some insights from that data. Pull out the best operating store, or the kind of summarize the sales for the North region of this organization, or pull out what's the most popular set of trainers or pair of trainers that get sold for this organization. So yeah, you can drop all that information into an AI and then ask it to make some decisions on that. Here, so if this is my sales data, tell me what the most popular item is. Once you've found that most popular item, write me 100 Instagram posts based on that most popular item and to the people who buy that most popular item, and then make 100 suggestions for Instagram posts. Generate me some images. You could attach it to DALL-E or some image generator. Generate me some suggested ideas for those Instagram posts. I might not use them, or I might not legally be allowed to use them, but they might then spin off into an idea that we go and do a photo shoot, or we create those images in Photoshop by hand by a human so that we can use them in a campaign.
Well, yeah, this is, I think I'm finding it super interesting, and there's a lot of learning going on here, and I think it's probably the same for a lot of our listeners, albeit a lot of them might already know a lot of the questions that I'm asking and know the answers to them. So when it comes to the advertisers in our industry, what are they asking when it comes to AI? Is it more knowledge? Is it more how to literally help support their KPIs? Is it sustainability? Why do they care about AI?
Yeah, so I think that there's two aspects, which is everybody thinks it's going to make everything cheaper. So you'll be able to do more with less, or you'll be able to do the same with less. So you can analyze data much quicker. And again, we're in a world where we've got huge amounts of data, huge amounts of access to data. And at the moment, it's still relatively problematic to analyze, a million lines of e-commerce data or sales data, or 10 million lines of ad impression data. And people think that AI, or people want AI to make that very easy, or to make that something that a non-expert can do. Or they can pay a junior to do it rather than a senior, and all these kind of different aspects of reducing cost, or making things cheaper, or making things happen quicker. So that's what people are looking for, is they're looking to throw huge amounts of information in and then pull out relevant and useful insight and research. That's all well and good. The data that you put in has to be useful and relevant for what you think you're going to get out. So you can't just throw everything in and then expect useful things to come out. The questions you ask still need to be written by somebody who understands the data that's gone in and understands what they want to get out of the system. And when you get something out of the system, you then have to know that what's come out is useful, relevant, and applicable to whatever you want to do. So people think it makes everything quicker, cheaper, easier, but actually it just pivots, or just changes who might need to do it, or how quickly you can do things. But you still need an expert to interpret those and to make them actionable behaviors.
Makes sense. And do you feel there are any myths around AI right now?
I think the big thing is that it's going to make everything cheaper and quicker. I think the other aspect is that we're exposed in certain communities. We're exposed to, wow, AI is changing everything. But actually, I think in the wider world, adoption is still relatively small, and adoption is still relatively focused on very particular things. I think I read some stats literally the other day, which was like ChatGPT says, oh, you've got 50 million users, or we've got 50 million users per month. But actually, those users that are using the system daily and have paid for the system, that's a much smaller pool. And actually, particularly for things like ChatGPT, OpenAI, it's not a revenue generating pool. They're still losing billions of dollars, even on the number of people that they are claiming use their application. So I think it feels like everything's got AI in it and everybody's using AI, but it feels like that because we're inside the bubble. And outside the bubble, I think it's still a little flat, or there's still a lot of reservation about what AI is and what's it going to do for the everyday world.
So there is definitely room then, and there's still time, right? It's not a case of you're just jumping on a bandwagon. Like you said, there's still a massive portion of the population that has never used AI. So there's a lot to learn there for everyone. That's good to know. I do find it quite overwhelming with the amount of different applications that are out there to upskill. I use Instagram, even LinkedIn, probably the two main social platforms. And you see those Instagram feeds or those stories. Clearly, it's an advert. Rather than scrolling down, here's 30 AI apps you need to download. Like, do you feel people need to download 30 apps, or is there a better way to start in terms of upskilling on AI?
Yeah, so you're right. I get those adverts on Instagram, which are like, here are 30 AI tools I use every day and has completely changed my life. Nobody needs 30 AI tools to change their life or to be used every day. What you can do is you can go to the big name providers that people know about now. You can go to Gemini, you can go to ChatGPT. I mean, even Meta has got an AI on it, and you can just start interacting with it on a very low level. And that doesn't need to be somebody who works in advertising or in ad tech. It can be somebody who runs a school, a teacher, or it can be somebody who's a stay-at-home parent, or anything that they can do. In fact, we had an example here where somebody typed into the AI, "It's half term and it's raining. What can I do with my kids indoors?" So you can just learn to use AIs like that. I heard a statistic which is English is the fastest growing programming language in the world, because writing a good prompt is how you get good AI results, or how you get a good AI response. So English majors are going to be the programmers of the future. Somebody who can kind of very succinctly and carefully write a good instruction to get a good answer. So that's kind of where people can start, or where people can start using AI in their everyday. But you also then need to understand that you can't just apply AI to everything. AI, you have to find a good problem to which AI is a good answer. You can't just say, "I want to apply AI to this problem, and I believe, or it will fix this problem without issue." I think that's the biggest thing that people need to take away, is that AI is a way to deal with things. It's not the first thing that you should think of.
That makes sense. Are there like one or two apps? Are there generally any apps that you think people should go after? So you mentioned ChatGPT, Gemini, any others, or does it depend on the applications if they want to use it for different things? Maybe some are better than others.
I think it's a very flat market. I think a lot are very similar, and actually lots of things that we think are AI applications are just sat on top of ChatGPT or Gemini. They're using the API. They might have a nice visual layer, and they might have a crazy name that you don't associate with that, but actually they're all using the same models below. Honestly, just playing with the vanilla interfaces. If you can get it on your phone, or you can get a free account with your Gmail account or through your Facebook account, that's the place to begin. The thing to learn is how to write a good prompt, how to articulate your problem into something that an AI can understand and can give you a good response to. That's the learning aspect of this. Using a tool is like using a hammer. Every hammer's the same, but actually it's what you're hammering it into, or it's the nail that you're using, or the thing that you're building that's actually going to be the useful thing.
Maybe we can ask ChatGPT how to write a good prompt. I'm sure people have done that.
It does. People do, and I do it. And it's good. But again, you have to know that what it's written is useful and what it's written is good.
And every answer will be different, right?
That's it. Every time.
Wow. So we always finish our podcast episodes with this question. I'd love to get your take on it. If you had a superpower in AdTech, what would it be?
So yeah, I thought about this actually, and actually, I wouldn't have a superpower. What I would love is administrator access to my laptop, so I could install whatever software I wanted at whatever time. This is the curse of being in a corporation, is that things are locked down, and you have to have legal sign off, and you have to go to IT to get things installed. In the olden days, God, you could install anything on your laptop. You could get a little piece of software that you just needed to use for half an hour to fix one very particular problem, install it, run this thing, then uninstall it or leave it on your laptop. That's the real superpower that I would like, is to go back to that world where I can install anything on my laptop.
So really freedom. I think that's the superpower.
The restriction and the reins that you get by a corporation. I know why they're there, and they're there for everybody's safety, and they're there for everybody's privacy. But God, blimey, that's something that really holds me back. Is that I just want to install this little converter or something that converts this document into that document.
Maybe ChatGPT can help you with that to find that answers.
Exactly.
Brilliant. Well, that's all we've got time for in today's episode. Thank you, James, for your time. It's been really, really, really good speaking to you.
Great to talk to you. Thanks.